All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dean Koontz' Cold Fire. We've got two different versions of it here. I don't know whether it's Cold Fire, 2 words, or Cold Fire, 1 word. I honest to God don't know. But let's talk about the covers first, because I love graphic design and cover illustration. The original version came out in 1991, and we get this cover here. Bold red font. I think most of the Dean Koontz books had the same font back then. And then we've got the re-release that came out in about 2004 with, just more of a whatever. I don't know. They're both decent. I mean, they both have a picture of the author on the back with the dog on one of them. But they're both decent. But I do think I like I'm just a sucker for the nostalgia of the old 1980s, 1990s horror novel look. Both of them have a windmill on the cover, which is integral to the plot, or at least the second part of the book. So let's talk about Cold Fire by Dean Koontz. We'll set this one up here. We'll hold this one. So, I actually really liked this. I've read every Dean Koontz book, but 30 years ago I read this one probably. Don't remember much about it. Then I started reading it and some things started to come back. And one of the things that's a strength about this is just the intensity of the scenes. Some of these scenes are intense. So the basic plot is there's a guy named John Ironheart. Might be Jim Ironheart. Let me check. Jim Ironheart. He's a guy. He kind of has these visions, these predilections, different phrases, word phrases like come into his head, and he ends up saying them out loud and repeating them. But then he gets these premonitions to go from California, where he lives, to different parts of the United States to save people's lives. And this is where the intensity comes in. Is the first life he saves, and I'm not going to be telling you much plot spoiler here by mentioning some of the lives he saves. But the first life he saves is a young boy who's about to be hit by a drunk driver in like Portland, Oregon or something, and he swoops in at the last minute and saves the kid. Now this there's some witnesses to this. One of which is Holly Thorne, who is a journalist in Portland, and she is like, how did that guy know that drunk driver was coming over the hill and around the corner? He was almost running towards the child to save him before anybody even knew there was a car on the way. So it's kind of like something's weird here. So she does a little research into the guy. She gets a little obsessed with the guy. But in the meantime, Jim Ironheart is saving other people. And this is where there's 2 scenes where things are just intense that I loved. And there's a mother and daughter that get kidnapped, and they are taken away in a mobile home, an RV, out into the desert somewhere. And Jim, of course, gets these visions or these different words that come into and he goes to that part of the country knowing that he's got to save this mother and daughter. He's conflicted because he's like, why am I being told by whatever supernatural force it is to save these specific people when thousands of others die every day? I mean, why am I just saving these specific people? So he's kind of tormented by it a little bit. But he goes and does it, and there's really just intense. And this is the part that I remembered from when I read the book a long time ago, was the battle that takes place in and around and on top and underneath this RV that's sort of in the middle of the desert. It's 3, 4, 5 chapters long, and I won't tell you any of the specifics, but it is just dynamite. It's dynamite writing, dynamite intensity, dynamite storytelling, dynamite action. It was just fantastic. And then it gets even ramped up in the next people he has to save are some people that are going to be involved in a plane crash. And so he ends up on this plane. And at this point in time, our main female character, Holly, is kind of caught up to him and kind of asked to kind of follow him around. Like, hey, I know what the jig is with you. I mean, I know that something's going on supernatural with you. Just let me follow. Let me see what's up with this. I'm not going to write a report about it. I'm not going to do a journalistic story about it. I don't want to marry you. I just want to know what's going on. And so he reluctantly lets her go on this plane trip with him, where he's supposed to save two people on this plane that are going to be involved in a plane crash. I won't tell you what happens, whether the plane crashes or not, or if he saves them or not, or who dies, or how many people die. But it's another intense scene of an airplane that's in distress. That's all I'll say. For quite some time. Again, this scene plays out for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chapters. It's just fantastic. One of the brilliant things about this book, another brilliant thing about this book is, and that's, all of this stuff ties into the windmill and the water that's around the windmill and what is down there in the windmill, what is in the water. Is there a creature? Is there an alien? Is there a spaceship? What is down there that he keeps getting drawn to this windmill? And he knows that his premonitions and these visions he has is coming from this. I won't tell you, because the last 2/3 of the book take place in and around this windmill thing. I'm not going to mention anything about that. But what I was going to say is one of the brilliant things about this book is there's really only two main characters. Other than the few people that he saves in the beginning, there's really only Jim Ironheart and Holly Thorne are the only two characters. And how you can build such an intense book with just two characters interacting is pretty brilliant. This book is, I thought this was like a horror novel, because I just kind of lumped Dean Koontz into the horror novel genre, when a lot of his stuff are just like kind of supernatural thrillers, like X-Files type things, which I think this falls in more of the supernatural thriller genre rather than the horror genre. Maybe even close to science fiction, maybe even close to romance, because of the two main characters that, hey, I'm not spoiling anything. I'm not saying whether they get together in the end or not, but it's a guy and a girl. I'm just saying. This was a good book. I actually really, really, really liked this. I'm going to give this one a solid 9.5 out of 10. Just an absolutely great thriller is Cold Fire.